Hello, everyone. It's Janelle here at Parents Making an Investment. And I just wanted to share with you today and encourage you. So, just in case if you see your kids doing this, that you don't start going like, what are they doing? They're not listening. They're not, or they're messing up the house. Um, Kind of at first, that was my mentality. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they're, just using things inappropriately. And really, when I sat back and I thought about, you know, what has happened in the past few months from March up until now, and then to see what my kids were doing, I had to step back and I started realizing that they weren't really making a mess of the house, but they had got into this mode that is normal for us as humans. And even as parents, right? We do the same thing too. And it's that coping mode. It's that, if you want to call it coping or you want to call it surviving, where like we get in that survival mode of we do whatever we need to do to survive in the situation, or do whatever we need to do to cope with what's going on. Our children do the same thing too. So I don't know if you've noticed it, but I've noticed it. And sometimes it's not the way in which we expect it to happen. And so I think that's why sometimes it might and can and will catch us off guard as parents. And so our first inclination, I guess for me, I don't know for you, if you have it down, great. If you can handle it, great. If you noticed it right off the back, kudos to you. But for me, it was just like the first thing was like, look, I'm trying to keep this space clean. I'm trying to make sure, to provide a learning space for you guys while you're doing remote learning, and then also a living space for you, and also a play space for you, all of these things. And now you're going and messing it up. And what is your problem? Um, and so in the midst, sometimes we don't think in terms of that. Actually, there's so many changes that has taken place in such a short time with, going in the shelter in place, stay at home order, social distancing, wearing a mask, quarantine. You can only be outside for a certain amount of time. The playgrounds are closed. If you go for a walk, there was like a curfew where we live. There was a curfew in that you can only be outside until a certain amount of times, and the stores were closing at a certain time. So there's a lot of things that were happening. And so sometimes what we do go into that survival mode. Parents were doing it, adults were doing it. They started buying up all that paper towel and toilet paper. It's the survival mode, and water and everything, hand sanitizer, Lysol disinfectant wipes, all these things to see that these are answers and these are the ways that is going to help me to survive what is going on and what's going down. And so our children went through that too. My kids went through that too. And I don't know, and I would love to hear how your kids went through this survival mode or coping mode with what has been going on with the stay-at-home order. I would love to hear that now that there's been, months of doing it and you've had time to actually see changes in your children, excuse me, changes in their behavior, things that started coming out that you didn't know that actually was there or existed. Please share, comment below, share your thoughts and your experiences. I would love to hear. And just so other people as well, other parents as well, can also see, and then they can pinpoint what it is that their child is going through and what that looks like. So what back to what I'm saying is, so what I started noticing is, my kids at first were asking like when they're going to go back to school, are they going to get their things from their lockers and from their desk. And we didn't have answers for that, their teachers didn't have answers for that. And so it's like when, but one thing I did do as far as trying to maintain consistency, and this is what I would suggest for parents to do too is to maintain consistency. So we kept with their regular bedtime as if they were in school, and then we also kept with very close to the time that they wake up in the morning. So the time that they would normally get up, get ready for school, eat breakfast, and leave, we try to stay very close with that time. So that way, even if they're not going to school, but their mindset, because they're so into that routine already, and they've been in that routine since last fall when they started school. So then I try to stay with that. And so even if they're not leaving the home, it's just having that mentality like this is school time, this is learning time for you. And so we're going to get up, have breakfast, and get into our learning space. So we were doing that, and what I noticed that my daughter started doing is she started packing her backpack. And at first, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, this is like, she started packing her backpack. She would bring like a book because she does have her independent reading time that's a part of her remote learning. She would bring her notepad, her pencil, um, whatever she felt, her water bottle. She would bring all these things in her backpack. And so she would bring this stuff into her learning space and she would pretend like she's going to school, and she would verbally say this to her listeners. She's like, okay, guys, bye, I'll see you. I'm going to school. It's time for me to go to class. And so she would do that. And then she would go into the learning space, which is just our living room. And she would find a place, like just a nook area, and pretend it was a locker. And she would put her bag there and put her supplies there. And she would leave it there until remote learning time was done. And then she would pack it back up and she would pretend like she's leaving school. And first, my first take towards it was just like, I can't believe it. They're just like, like bringing stuff into this space and removing it from their bedrooms and removing it from, their other backpacks. And I'm just like, what is going on? And at first it was just like, to me, I'm like, it's not playtime. And I didn't see it as a way that they were coping with what was going on. I didn't see it as a way of like just surviving in the situation. And I just thought as like, look, you're playing and it's not playtime, it's learning time. And it, to me at first it came off like she was trying to incorporate her pretend play in what she has to do. And so when I stepped back and started watching this repetitively behavior, and the other two siblings joined, and my younger child did not join because he just didn't get it. It's like, what's the point of that? But I realized that it was how they were actually coping with what was going on. They could not change their present situation. They could not change the fact that they had to stay at home. They could not change the fact that they had to be learning and still required to do the remote learning, because that's the way that their teachers take attendance, is by them completing the work online, right? So I saw that even though they cannot change that, and even though they could not change the place that they had to stand, they could not change the limited time that they were outside. But what they could change is their approach to how they dealt with the situation. And so that is what they did. They changed the way without any initiation on my part as a parent, without me encouraging them, without me making any suggestions. They just went off doing this. And this is the way they took something that was frustrating them at first, because honestly, they were frustrated by this. I spoke to my daughter. She shared it with her teacher, how she was frustrated, a little bit stressed. So they were dealing with stress and frustration in the beginning. And this is the way that they dealt with that. Like, I cannot change these things, but what I can do is change how I look at it, how I view it, and how I interpret it, and how I cope from the situation. And so what they did to cope with what they were dealing with was by changing their mindset and changing their mindset and thinking that I'm going to school. This is my school time, and I'm going to pack this bag, and I'm going to pretend that I'm going to school, and I'm going to sit at my learning space, and I'm going to do this work and everything like that. And so they did this every day. They still do it till this day. We are coming into probably the last couple of days, couple weeks, this week and next week, of remote learning before the school year ends for my kids. And they've been doing this faithfully. And I just want to say that your child or your children might be doing something similar, or in some ways that look like they're just causing more chaos and more blood pressure on your part and more stress on your part. But step back just for a few minutes and think about, they might be doing this as a coping mechanism, because we do have a coping mechanism in us. They might be doing this as a way of surviving the situation. They might be doing this to cope with the situation. And though they cannot change their space, they cannot change the requirements, the expectations, and the limitations that are put on them, not by us as parents, and higher authority and everything that we sometimes can't even give explanation to for them. But in the midst of it all, they're still learning how to cope. And what it's doing for them is minimizing the stress, minimizing the frustration that sometimes these changes bring about in our lives and bring about in our children's lives. And so they're finding a way and an outlet to deal with it all. And so I just want you to I just want to encourage you and to look at it in a positive way, that please share. I want you to share, because I do want to know what your child is doing that you have seen that's different. And so I hope that we can just bounce ideas off of each other and comment and share, so that way we can help each other and we can pinpoint what it is that our children are doing, and if that is part of coping, and make suggestions to each other, so that way we can alleviate some of the parental frustration too, of what our child and children might be doing and experiencing, and ways that they might be handling the changes that they're going through, and how they're coping with it. So please share. I invite you to share today, and also to share this video, and not only just to like. I invite you to like it, because then more viewers can see it. That's why I asked you to like it. But I also would want you to share it, so other people can share their thoughts and share their experiences of what they're going through and the changes that their children are going through, so we can journey together. We can help each other out on this parental journey, and so we can build each other up just by sharing what we're going through. And you don't know how much that can be of help to someone else, to feel like they're not the only one. For me to come on here and share my ups and downs, my ins and outs, my struggles, my disappointments, that can speak volume to someone, and they can actually say, wow, I thought I was the only one. And so sometimes it does encourage others, and a lot of times, all the times it does. And it's just how we see it. And so today I just want to share that with you and encourage you. But at the same time, I want you to share it with somebody else. I'm challenging you today to share this information in this video with someone else. I would love to see and even hear how your children has been coping with this. And yes, we're coming to the latter part of the school year, but how is your child coping with the changes? And if you've seen any odd things going on with your child, that could be their way of coping with the change. And so don't dismiss it today. Don't discredit it. Don't shoot it down, but step back and just watch it play out. Because naturally, as humans, we do have that coping mechanism in us, and so do our children. So don't forget today. And if you haven't subscribed, If you haven't subscribed, please do so below so that way we can stay connected on this parental journey to invest in our kids today for them tomorrow. And please comment below if you need to reach out to me. You could do that via email, Janelle Stewart at parentsmakinganinvestment.com. And I hope that this encourages you and also motivates you to allow your child to cope today. Thank you.